A single dad believed he was assisting a struggling mom, only to discover she was a CEO putting hearts to the test. For most of its residents, life here was a careful balance between technology and survival. The artificial gravity hummed softly underfoot, lights glimmered like stars, and the colony's systems ensured everyone had food, water, and breathable air. But amidst all this perfection, humans still had problems: bills, work, parenting, loneliness. John Rivera, a single dad with short-cropped black hair and hands that had known more tools than pens, navigated the bustling corridor with practiced ease. He worked as a maintenance engineer for the colony, repairing systems from water purifiers to low-gravity exercise pods. His life was simple, structured, and centered around his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. She was small for her age but sharp, always asking questions and demanding more than most kids dared. "Dad," Lily said, tugging at his sleeve as they walked past the central hub, "do you think Mom would like these flowers?" John chuckled. "I think she would, pumpkin. But remember, we're not delivering flowers today. We're picking up supplies for the week." Lily pouted but let go of his sleeve, her small backpack bouncing as she followed him. The supply hub was a maze of kiosks, self-driving carts, and robotic assistants. Most residents moved with purpose, scanning their cards and carrying packages to hover carts that followed them like loyal pets. John maneuvered through the crowd when he noticed her. She was standing near a broken kiosk, her long brown hair tied in a messy bun, clothes practical but slightly worn at the edges. Her hands hovered over the malfunctioning touchpad, pressing it repeatedly, frustration clear in the tense lines of her face. A small bag sat at her feet, and beside it, a young boy no older than 5 tugged at her sleeve while looking around nervously. "Mom," the boy cried, "it's not working." John hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer. Something about the way she moved, the quiet frustration mingled with determination, tugged at him. "Need a hand?" he asked. His voice was friendly, casual, but there was an underlying authority, the voice of someone who could handle problems without panicking. She looked up sharply, startled. Her brown eyes studied him for a moment, suspicion flickering, then she nodded quickly. Yes. This kiosk won't accept my card and I don't know why." John crouched beside the machine, scanning the holographic interface. "Looks like a software glitch. They've been having issues with these models. I can override it temporarily." Her face lit up, relief washing over her features. "Oh, thank you. I don't know what I'd do without John," he said, offering his hand. "John Rivera." "And who's this little guy?" "This is Max," she replied. "Max, say hi." "Hi," Max mumbled shyly, hiding behind her leg. John smiled warmly. "Nice to meet you, Max. Don't worry, we'll get this fixed fast." He tapped a few keys on the interface, entered a diagnostic sequence, and in under a minute the kiosk hummed back to life. The screen glowed green. "Try it now," he said. The woman swiped her card and the machine beeped in confirmation. Max clapped his hands excitedly. "Wow. Thank you so much," she said, a hint of genuine gratitude in her voice. "I don't know how I would have managed this on my own." John waved his hand modestly. "Just part of the job. Helping people is what we do." She hesitated, then smiled faintly. I'm Evelyn, by the way." "Evelyn Klein." "John Rivera," he replied. "And this little genius is Lily." He crouched briefly to point at his daughter, who was quietly observing the scene with wide eyes. "She helps me keep the world from breaking down, in a sense." Evelyn chuckled softly, glancing down at Max. "He's a genius too, in his own way." For a moment, the crowded hub, the hum of machinery, the flickering lights all faded. It was just them, John, Evelyn, and their children, a tiny human cluster in the vast, engineered space of the colony. John realized he was already formulating ways to help her beyond this small fix. Maybe she needed groceries delivered efficiently, or a hand with her apartment maintenance. Small gestures, but important ones. Humans thrived on connections, he knew, even in a place dominated by machines. "Listen," John said cautiously, "I don't usually do this, but if you ever need help with your home systems or anything else, I can stop by, free of charge. I know how hard it can be managing everything alone." Evelyn blinked. She hesitated, studied him as if measuring the sincerity in his offer. Finally, she nodded. "I appreciate that, truly. I've been busy and it's hard to keep up." John smiled. "Busy is normal, but you're not alone." Max tugged at her sleeve. "Mom, can we go see the playground now?" Evelyn looked down at him, smiling tiredly, then back at John. "Sure, thank you again, really." John nodded, brushing a hand through his hair. "Anytime, seriously." As Evelyn and Max walked away toward the recreational area, John glanced at Lily. "See that?" he said quietly. "Helping someone feels good, doesn't it?" Lily grinned. "Yeah, can we help them again tomorrow?" John laughed. "We'll see, but first groceries." Later that evening, as John repaired a minor fault in their apartment's water system, he couldn't shake the memory of Evelyn. There was something different about her. She didn't just seem tired from parenting. She carried herself with a kind of quiet confidence that suggested she was capable of handling more than most people gave her credit for. He shook his head. "Probably just my imagination," he muttered to Lily, who was curled up on the sofa with a tablet playing a learning game. But deep down, he knew he wanted to see her again. Humans, he had learned, were full of surprises, and sometimes the most unexpected encounters sparked connections that changed lives. Over the next few days, John noticed Evelyn around the colony more often. She never seemed to have enough time, always hurrying, carrying her supplies, looking slightly overwhelmed but determined. Each time he saw her, he felt that same pull, a sense that she was struggling, yes, but also that she had a hidden strength he couldn't quite name. One evening, as John was finishing a routine check on a power relay, he noticed Evelyn trying to lift a heavy crate with Max struggling to help. Without thinking, he stepped forward. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice calm but strong. She looked at him, surprise flickering in her eyes. I thought I could manage, but yes, that would help." With a few careful adjustments, John helped lift and move the crate. Max clapped again, laughing. "You know," Evelyn said, "you're always around when I need help." "It's unusual," John shrugged. "Maybe it's coincidence, or maybe humans are meant to help each other." He smiled warmly. "I prefer to think the second one." Evelyn studied him for a long moment, then nodded almost imperceptibly. "Perhaps you're right." From that day onward, John found himself drawn into small acts of assistance, checking her apartment systems, helping Max with homework simulations, or simply offering advice about colony life. Every interaction deepened his respect for Evelyn, and a quiet friendship blossomed. Little did John know, however, that Evelyn's life was far more complicated than it appeared. She was not just a struggling mother trying to balance work and childcare. She carried responsibilities that extended far beyond this part of the colony, responsibilities that could change the course of human life itself. For now, though, she was just a woman in need of a helping hand, and John Rivera was determined to be there for her. And in the quiet, spinning corridors of the colony, two lives had begun to intersect, one guided by compassion and human instinct, the other shaped by secrets that no one could yet imagine. The orbital colony never truly slept. Its glowing corridors and rotating rings hummed with life, even when most humans had retreated to their apartments. John Rivera, a single dad who thrived on routine and problem-solving, found comfort in the familiar rhythm of the colony. Maintenance rounds, monitoring systems, repairing faults, it was work, but it also gave him purpose. Yet lately he had noticed something new. Evelyn, the struggling mom he had met at the supply hub, had begun appearing in places he frequented. Sometimes with Max, sometimes alone, always seeming slightly hurried, always seeming different. It was not her tiredness that caught his attention, but the quiet determination in her eyes. She moved through the colony like someone who belonged everywhere yet revealed nothing about herself. and every time John saw her, he felt a small tug in his chest, the kind of curiosity that only grows stronger with each encounter. On this particular morning, John and Lily were heading to the recreational dome. The dome was a large area with artificial parks, climbing walls, and low-gravity zones for children to explore safely. Lily loved it, and John enjoyed watching her run freely. "Dad," Lily said as they stepped inside, her voice echoing softly, "do you think we'll see Evelyn and Max here today?" John chuckled. "Maybe. If they're around, we'll say hi. But remember, Lily, you have to focus on your own fun too." Just as they reached the climbing wall, a familiar voice called out, "Lily, Dad!" John turned, and there she was, Evelyn, holding Max's hand as he tried to climb a small wall. Her brow was slightly furrowed, her eyes alert, scanning the area. Evelyn's presence seemed to light up the dome even without words. "Hi," John said warmly. "Fancy seeing you here," Evelyn smiled. "We come here sometimes. Max likes the climbing walls, and it's easier to keep him occupied." Max waved shyly. "Hi, Lily." "Hi, Max," Lily replied, running up to shake his hand. The two children immediately started laughing and comparing who could climb higher. John watched them, a small smile on his face. Evelyn turned to him. "You always seem to be around when I need help." "Are you following me now?" she teased lightly. John laughed. "No, I promise, just coincidence, I guess. Or maybe humans are meant to run into each other sometimes." Evelyn raised an eyebrow, her smile hinting at amusement. "Perhaps." The day passed with laughter and playful competitions. John found himself helping both children with the climbing apparatus, making sure they didn't fall or injure themselves. He was careful but patient, explaining techniques in simple words. Lily and Max were quick learners, and soon they were challenging each other in friendly races. After a while, the children grew tired and flopped onto a nearby bench, their faces flushed with excitement. John handed them water while Evelyn leaned against the railing watching them. "You're good with kids," she said softly, almost as if she were speaking to herself. John shrugged. "I try my best. Lily keeps me on my toes." "Kids, they have a way of teaching you things you didn't know you needed to learn." Evelyn nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Yes, they do. Max keeps me on my toes, too." There was a brief silence, comfortable and unforced. John realized that this was rare, a moment of stillness in the otherwise busy and engineered environment of the colony. "Do you want to grab a snack?" John asked, gesturing toward a nearby automated cafe. "I think we all earned it after that climbing session." Evelyn smiled and nodded. "Sure. Max, are you hungry?" "Yep," Max replied, bouncing up. The four of them moved toward the cafe, chatting lightly. John learned that Evelyn had been experimenting with a new type of energy-efficient cooking module in her apartment, trying to prepare nutritious meals for Max while balancing a busy schedule. She spoke casually about it, but John noticed subtle clues: the way staff greeted her in passing, the quiet confidence in her explanations, that suggested she was more capable than she let on. John, however, assumed she was simply intelligent and resourceful, not knowing the full extent of her life. As they sat down with small trays of food, Lily leaned over to John. "Dad, she's really smart, isn't she?" John nodded. "Yes, she is. And not just smart, she's determined. You can tell when someone has to solve problems every day and never gives up." Evelyn caught the remark and smiled. "You're kind to say that," John shrugged. "I just speak the truth. Humans who don't give up, they're the ones who make a difference." Evelyn's smile lingered, but there was a flicker in her eyes, curiosity perhaps, or appraisal. She was watching John closely, noting how he spoke, how he interacted with Lily and Max, how he handled small crises with patience. She was, in her own way, testing him. The afternoon unfolded with shared stories and playful debates. John told tales of repairing the colony's systems under pressure, of navigating malfunctioning modules, and of little successes that most people overlooked. Evelyn shared stories too, minor anecdotes about managing life as a parent, her own childhood memories, and her fascination with technology. Yet she carefully avoided revealing the most important parts of her life, those that would show just how influential she really was. Despite this, John felt a growing admiration for her. She was not just a parent. She was intelligent, resourceful, and had a subtle strength that matched his own. And as their children played together, he realized that this bond was expanding beyond mere acquaintanceship. There was trust forming here, the kind that grows slowly, quietly, and cannot be forced. Later, as the dome's artificial sun dimmed to simulate evening, John helped Evelyn gather Max's things. "You know," she said, "you've done more for us in a few days than most people do in months. I appreciate it." John shrugged modestly. "It's nothing, really. Helping is what humans do best. Even in a place full of machines, humans are the ones who can make a real difference." Evelyn looked at him, studying his expression. There was honesty there and something more: courage, compassion, patience, qualities that machines could not replicate. She made a mental note to remember them. John walked with them to the exit of the dome. Max clung to Evelyn's hand, occasionally glancing at John while Lily skipped ahead, energetic as ever. "See you tomorrow?" Lily asked eagerly. John looked at Evelyn. "If they're around," he said lightly. "You never know, the colony is big." Evelyn smiled faintly, something unreadable in her eyes. "Maybe we will." After they left, John and Lily returned to their apartment. Lily was tired but happy, talking non-stop about Max and the games they played. John listened, smiling, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about Evelyn, her strength, her confidence, the subtle hints of her intelligence. "Dad," Lily asked suddenly, "do you think she's like a superhero or something?" John laughed softly. "Not a superhero, just a very smart and capable human. And those are the kinds of people who inspire us to do better, Lily." The next few days passed in a blur of routine and small encounters. John continued to notice Evelyn in different parts of the colony, sometimes checking on systems, sometimes escorting Max to school simulations, sometimes appearing in unexpected places with calm authority. Each time he was impressed by her composure, her intelligence, her care for her child. One afternoon, John received a small emergency request while repairing a minor fault in a habitat module. As he worked, he heard a familiar voice over the comlink. "John. I hope this isn't an interruption, but could you help with something in my apartment?" He froze for a moment, then smiled. "Sure, what seems to be the problem?" "It's the heating module, it's acting up. I can't get it to adjust properly," Evelyn explained. John nodded. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. When he arrived, he found Evelyn calmly observing Max as he built a small robot from a kit. She seemed completely in control, but her eyes flicked to the malfunctioning module, calculating, analyzing. "I'll take a look," John said, crouching beside the system. Within minutes, he diagnosed a minor software glitch and restored it to proper function. Evelyn observed quietly, her expression thoughtful. "You make it look easy," she said softly. John shrugged. "It's just experience. Humans adapt. Machines, sometimes they need a little human intuition." Evelyn smiled faintly, her eyes meeting his. "I like that idea." As he left, John realized that this bond, this growing friendship, was more important than he had imagined. It was not just about helping her or her son. It was about humans supporting each other, thriving together, and finding strength in the most unexpected connections. And unbeknownst to John, Evelyn was taking careful mental notes too, assessing, observing, testing, seeing if the human heart could rise above challenges even when appearances were deceiving. For now, though, they were simply two families, spending time together in a spinning colony, building trust, sharing laughter, and unknowingly preparing for challenges that neither of them could yet imagine. Life on the orbital colony followed patterns, but sometimes those patterns broke. John Rivera learned that on a quiet morning when his work tablet flashed with an unusual alert. It was not an emergency alarm, but it was close enough to make his heart tighten. Power fluctuation detected. Residential ring C. John frowned. That ring housed thousands of families, including Evelyn and Max. Dad, Lily asked, sitting at the table with her breakfast. You look worried. John forced a smile. Just work stuff, finish your food, I'll be back soon. He kissed the top of her head, grabbed his toolkit, and hurried into the corridor. The colony lights flickered once very slightly, but John noticed. Most people would not. That was the thing about humans like John. Machines saw data. Humans felt patterns. As he moved quickly through the rotating ring, he saw others noticing too. Doors paused before opening. Service drones hovered longer than usual. Something was wrong. When he reached Ring C, the problem became clear. The air felt heavy, not unsafe. Not yet, but strained. John accessed a nearby maintenance panel. His eyes widened. This doesn't make sense, he muttered. 3 independent systems were pulling power at the same time, housing climate control, food synthesis units, and the learning simulation grid. That should never happen. The colony's AI normally prevented conflicts like this automatically. Unless, John whispered. Unless someone had allowed it. He moved faster. Inside her apartment, Evelyn stood calmly while Max sat on the floor assembling a small model spacecraft. The heating unit hummed louder than usual. Max looked up. Mom, it's noisy. Evelyn knelt beside him. It's okay. Just keep building. But her eyes were sharp, focused. She felt it too. Then the door chimed. John, she opened it instantly. John, she said, I was just about to call you. I know, he replied, already stepping inside. The systems are fighting each other. Has anything unusual happened today? Evelyn hesitated for half a second. No, everything normal. John nodded, but something in her tone told him that was not entirely true. He knelt by the wall console and connected his toolkit. What are you doing? Evelyn asked. Bypassing the local AI, John replied. Just temporarily, it's stuck in a loop. That's not easy, she said carefully. John gave a small smile. Neither is raising a kid alone, you learn. His fingers moved fast, not rushed, confident. Years of fixing broken systems in impossible conditions had taught him something no algorithm ever could, when to trust instinct. The lights dimmed suddenly. Max gasped. Mom, Evelyn stood up straight. John, I've got it, he said. Just give me 10 seconds. 10 seconds in space could be the difference between calm and chaos. Across Ring C, residents felt it too. Doors froze. Screens went blank. A low hum echoed through the structure, the sound of systems straining against each other. Deep in the colony's central core, monitoring AI processes flagged an anomaly. Human intervention detected. Unauthorized but effective. Evelyn felt the shift. John rerouted power manually, prioritizing life support and environmental balance over convenience systems. It was not elegant, it was not efficient, but it worked. The hum softened, lights stabilized, air pressure normalized. Max smiled. It stopped. John exhaled slowly and leaned back. There, that should hold until central control resets. Evelyn stared at him. Not as a struggling mother, not as a friend, but as something else. A human variable. You didn't panic, she said quietly. John shrugged. Panicking never fixed a system. You chose which systems mattered most, she continued. He looked at her, confused. Isn't that obvious? Air, temperature, safety. Everything else comes after. Evelyn said nothing. Somewhere far above them, behind layers of corporate authority and sealed observation decks, data analysts were watching and revising assumptions. Minutes later, Colony Control announced a minor technical disturbance. Most residents accepted it and moved on, but Evelyn did not. Neither did John. Later that evening, the recreational dome reopened with reduced capacity. John brought Lily, hoping normalcy would calm her. They found Evelyn and Max already there. You okay? John asked. Yes, Evelyn replied. Thanks to you. Lily ran to Max and soon they were laughing again, unaware of how close things had come to real danger. John watched them, then glanced at Evelyn. That system failure, it wasn't random. Evelyn met his eyes. No, he waited. She sighed softly. The colony is testing new load-balancing protocols. Sometimes humans notice problems faster than machines. John frowned. That's a dangerous way to test. Progress always is, she said. Her answer unsettled him. As they sat on a bench watching the children play, John spoke again. You know, staff treat you differently. I've seen it. Evelyn smiled faintly. People treat confidence with respect. That's not what this is, John replied gently. You understand systems too well. You move like someone who gives orders, not someone who waits for help. Evelyn did not deny it. Instead, she asked, Does that bother you? John thought for a moment. No. But I don't like being lied to. Silence stretched between them. Then Evelyn stood. Come with me. Where? Just trust me. Against his better judgment, and because something deep inside told him this mattered, John followed. They entered a restricted corridor. The doors opened without Evelyn touching a panel. John stopped walking. That's not public access, he said. No, Evelyn replied. It is. They stepped into a quiet observation chamber overlooking the colony's inner ring. Screens lined the walls displaying real-time system data. John swallowed. Evelyn, who are you? She turned to face him. Someone who needed to see how real humans act when no one is watching. She tapped the console. Data flowed. Modern colonies rely on AI decision-making, she continued. But AI does not understand sacrifice, or intuition, or care. John stared at the screens. This was a test. Yes. For who? For the future, she said simply. He shook his head. You put people at risk. I put systems under stress, Evelyn corrected. You chose people. John was angry now. That's not a game. No, she agreed. It's a measure. She studied him carefully. You helped because it was right, not because you were told to, not because you would be rewarded. John crossed his arms. And what does that make me? Evelyn smiled. Proof. Before he could respond, alarms chimed softly, not danger alarms, but priority notifications. Evelyn's expression changed, professional, commanding. It's time, she said. For what? For the truth. She looked at him fully now, not hiding anything. My name is Evelyn Klein, she said, and I am the chief executive of Helix Systems, the company that designed this colony. John felt the floor drop away beneath his feet. You're what? The test is almost over, she continued, and you passed without knowing you were being tested at all. John stared at her, 1,000 emotions colliding: shock, anger, disbelief, confusion. You let me think you were struggling, he said quietly. Yes. You let my daughter bond with your son. Yes. Why? Because sincerity cannot be measured when people know they're being judged, Evelyn said. Only when they believe they are simply being human. John turned away, breathing hard. I need time, he said. I know, she replied. But understand this, John Rivera, what you did today may decide how humanity survives its next century. He looked back at her. Humans don't need tests to be human, he said. They just need a chance. Evelyn nodded slowly. And that, she said, is exactly why you matter. As they returned to the dome, Lily ran up to him. Dad, Max says you're really smart. John smiled weakly and hugged her. He looked at Evelyn once more. The woman he thought he knew was gone. In her place stood someone far more dangerous and far more hopeful. The test was no longer quiet, and the colony would never be the same. The revelation hung in the air like a dense fog. John Rivera couldn't shake the truth he had just learned. Evelyn Klein, the woman he thought was a struggling mom, was the CEO of Helix Systems, the company that had designed and maintained the entire orbital colony. Everything he had assumed about her, every small act of helping and sharing, had been carefully orchestrated as a test. He wanted to feel anger. He wanted to storm away. Yet beneath the swirl of disbelief and betrayal, there was a stubborn respect. Evelyn's competence, her calm during the recent crisis, and her insight into human behavior were undeniable. John, Evelyn said gently, breaking the silence. I know this feels like a betrayal, but it's not meant to be personal. I needed to see what humans do when no one is watching, to see who rises to challenges without expecting reward. John rubbed his temples. And you do this by putting people in danger, by testing them without their knowledge. Not danger, Evelyn corrected. Situations. Stress tests. I measure human ingenuity and compassion, qualities that AI cannot replicate. And you were exemplary. He took a deep breath, trying to absorb her words. So, all this time, all the help I gave you, you were watching, scoring, judging. Evelyn nodded, but her eyes softened. Not judging, observing, and yes, you passed. John shook his head. I don't know if I can just accept this. You don't have to, Evelyn replied. But understand, this isn't just a game. The colony depends on human decision-making as much as it depends on machines. The choices you made today, they saved lives. He stared at her, speechless. Her calm certainty was infuriating and impressive at once. You were human when it mattered, she continued. And that is rare, John swallowed. He wanted to argue to leave, but the memory of the power fluctuations and how quickly he had acted reminded him of the truth in her words. Then Evelyn's communicator chimed, a soft, melodic alert. She glanced at it. It's the board, she said, her tone shifting to professional authority. They want to discuss the incident and your role in it. John froze. My role, Evelyn smiled faintly. Your actions were noticed beyond this ring. They want to evaluate how someone like you can contribute to the colony on a larger scale. John felt a rush of panic. You mean work with you? On what? Evelyn hesitated. On ensuring the colony thrives, on decisions where human judgment matters. You have a skill I've seen rarely. You act decisively, ethically, and with compassion. The board needs people like you. John shook his head. I'm just a maintenance engineer. I'm not ready for corporate boards or high-level decisions. You're ready in ways that no one else is, she said. You just don't know it yet. The room fell silent. John glanced at Lily and Max, who were absorbed in a small floating learning module, unaware of the tension surrounding their parents. The sight reminded him why he cared so much about people like Evelyn and her son, about humans and their ability to thrive, even in a space dominated by systems and machines. Evelyn studied him carefully. John, I didn't bring you here to coerce you. You can refuse. But know this, the colony's future sometimes depends on people willing to step forward when no one else can. John ran a hand through his hair. And if I fail, you won't, she said softly. But even if you did, the important part is that you try. That's what humans do best. That's why you matter. Later in the common corridor, John walked alongside Evelyn. Her posture was calm, professional, yet approachable, the same confidence he had admired from afar, now fully revealed. You make it sound so simple, John said. Step into decisions that could affect thousands of people. It's not simple. No, Evelyn admitted. It's not simple, but it's necessary. Machines maintain balance, but humans provide judgment, intuition, compassion. That is something AI cannot do. John nodded slowly. He remembered the power fluctuation earlier that day. He remembered choosing which systems mattered most, prioritizing lives over convenience. Machines could calculate efficiency, but they couldn't decide what was right in that moment. And that, he said quietly, is why I did what I did, because someone had to make the choice. Evelyn smiled faintly. Exactly. The days that followed were a whirlwind. John met with administrative staff, engineers, and even members of the colony's board, all under Evelyn's watchful eye. Every time he spoke, every decision he made, Evelyn observed. Yet she never corrected him. Instead, she let him act, trusting his human instincts to guide him. Lily, unaware of the stakes, played happily with Max during these sessions. She asked questions, laughed, and occasionally interrupted John with innocent curiosity. Max mirrored her energy, asking technical questions and showing a keen understanding of the machinery around them. It was during one of these sessions, in the colony's simulation chamber, that the real test began. A scenario was presented: a minor system failure in the oxygen processing unit of a remote habitat ring. The AI indicated no immediate danger, but subtle anomalies suggested a potential escalation. John was asked to make real-time decisions. Evelyn watched silently. The board monitored remotely. John assessed the data. He noticed small fluctuations that the AI had deemed irrelevant. He cross-referenced with maintenance records, calculated potential cascading failures, and made a choice: reroute temporary power from non-essential systems and adjust life support algorithms manually. The system stabilized. AI logs confirmed the intervention was effective. Evelyn nodded, barely perceptible, but it was enough. "See," she said later when John returned to the observation chamber. "You didn't follow instructions. You didn't wait for confirmation. You acted. Human judgment saved the day." John shook his head. "It feels like I'm always improvising, like I'm guessing." "That's the beauty of it," Evelyn replied. "Machines calculate outcomes. Humans understand them. You interpret the data and act in ways that align with ethics, responsibility, and intuition." The words sank deep. John realized that all his years of repairing, fixing, and solving problems had prepared him for this, more than he had ever known. Humans, even in space, were more than cogs in a system. They were thinkers, leaders, and guardians. Later that evening, John returned to his apartment. Lily climbed into bed, tired but happy. He sat beside her, brushing her hair. "You were amazing today," she said sleepily. "Helping everyone again." John smiled. "It wasn't just me. People worked together. That's how humans survive, that's how we thrive." She yawned, closing her eyes. "I like that. Humans are strong." He nodded, looking out at the glowing rings of the colony. Humans were strong, sometimes stubborn, sometimes reckless, but above all, capable of compassion, ingenuity, and courage. The next morning, Evelyn appeared at his apartment with Max in tow. "Good morning," she said. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "You're fine," John said, though he noted the confidence in her presence. "What brings you here?" "I wanted to check on you," she replied, "and to ask if you've thought about the offer." John frowned. "You mean working with the board?" "Yes," she said simply. "You don't have to decide today, but consider it carefully. The colony needs humans like you." John looked at her, then at Max and Lily, who were already playing together. I need time," he admitted. "Take all the time you need," Evelyn said, her voice gentle but firm. "But remember, humans shape their own destiny. Sometimes opportunities come once, and only once." Over the next few weeks, John faced small trials and simulations, each designed to test his decision-making under pressure. Evelyn observed, rarely intervening, allowing him to act independently. Every time he succeeded, he gained confidence. Every time he hesitated, he learned. Through it all, the bond between the families grew. Lily and Max became inseparable, sharing meals, games, and stories. John and Evelyn began to understand each other not as superior or inferior, but as partners in responsibility and care. One evening, after a long day of simulation and analysis, John and Evelyn stood on the observation deck, looking out at the earth below. "You've changed my perspective," John said quietly. "I thought running systems and helping people was enough, but it's more. It's about decisions, responsibility, trust." Evelyn nodded. "Exactly. And you've shown that human qualities, intuition, empathy, courage, are what truly make a difference. AI can maintain the colony, but humans define it." John exhaled slowly. "So, what now?" "Now," Evelyn said, "you decide if you want to be part of something bigger. Not just fixing problems, not just helping occasionally, but shaping the future." He looked at her, then at Lily and Max, their laughter echoing softly. A sense of purpose welled within him. Fear lingered, but it was accompanied by determination. John Rivera had faced impossible situations before, but this was different. This was about humans, their heart, their decisions, and their potential to shape life in the stars. And he realized finally that humans were capable of far more than he had ever imagined. The orbital colony glowed like a jewel above Earth, its rings spinning steadily in silence. From afar it looked perfect, controlled, safe, but inside life never stopped moving. Systems hummed, lights flickered, and humans went about their business, living, working, learning, loving. For John Rivera, the past weeks had been a whirlwind. What began as a simple act of helping a struggling mother had transformed into something larger than he could have imagined. He had been tested, challenged, and observed. And now, standing in the observation chamber beside Evelyn Klein, he realized the full weight of the opportunity laid before him. "You understand the stakes," Evelyn said quietly, her eyes reflecting the artificial sunlight streaming through the observation deck. "This is not about repair jobs anymore. It's about decisions that affect thousands of lives, about the colony, its growth, and its survival." John nodded. "I understand, and I want to do it. I want to help." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Then we begin." The first challenge came almost immediately. A minor but sudden anomaly appeared in one of the peripheral rings, a localized power surge that risked shutting down life support systems if not handled quickly. The colony's AI recognized the surge but hesitated, waiting for a human decision before rerouting power to essential systems. John was called into the control room, monitors flashing rapidly in his peripheral vision. His hands hovered over the interface, fingers poised to act. The room was tense, filled with engineers and administrative staff, each waiting for his next move. "Prioritize life support," he said, almost instinctively. "Then redistribute power from non-essential systems. Keep the residential modules stable. Keep the children's simulation modules running. They need morale and mental engagement." Evelyn watched silently. "Go," she said. John's fingers moved like they had their own memory. He adjusted power nodes, rerouted emergency circuits, and monitored the AI's feedback loops. Within minutes, the surge stabilized. Systems hummed normally. Lights glowed steadily. Life support continued without interruption. The room erupted into quiet applause. Not for him, he reminded himself, but for what humans could do when trusted. Later in the observation chamber, Evelyn approached him. "You didn't just fix the problem. You managed priorities. You balanced logic with human needs. That is what sets humans apart." John rubbed the back of his neck, feeling both pride and exhaustion. "I've done maintenance my whole life. I fix things, but this feels different, bigger." "Because it is," Evelyn said softly. "You are part of shaping the future, and today you showed why humans are indispensable." After that, John began working closely with Evelyn and the colony's board. Simulations became more complex, encompassing ethical decisions, resource allocation, and human welfare. Sometimes the AI would present multiple solutions, all efficient but emotionally detached. John had to weigh the impact on the people, families, children, single parents, everyone who called the colony home. Each day, he became more confident. Each challenge reinforced what Evelyn had said. Humans define the future, not machines. Meanwhile, the bond between the families deepened. Lily and Max spent long hours exploring the dome, building small robotic inventions, and learning about energy systems through playful experiments. John found joy in watching them, seeing how curiosity, creativity, and trust flourished. One evening, after a particularly intense simulation session, John and Evelyn walked along the outer observation corridor. Earth rotated slowly below, oceans shimmering like liquid sapphire, continents glowing faintly under city lights. "You've changed," Evelyn said quietly. "From the man I met fixing a kiosk to someone I can trust with decisions that affect thousands." John shrugged. "I didn't do it for trust. I did it because it was the right thing to do. That's all I've ever known, but it feels good to know it matters." "It matters more than you realize," she said. Their conversation was interrupted by a sharp alarm. A warning flashed on the main monitors. An energy distribution module in one of the outer residential rings had overheated. Immediate action was required, or sections of the ring could experience temporary power failures. John took a deep breath. "Let's go." In the control room, John coordinated a team of engineers. He analyzed the situation, cross-referenced historical data, and calculated multiple contingency plans. The AI offered a perfectly logical solution: shut down all non-essential systems for 10 minutes, but John hesitated. The non-essential systems included child simulation pods and environmental modules that maintained comfort for elderly residents. "Not acceptable," John said. "We can reroute power from the commercial modules temporarily. Reduce energy consumption in real-time simulations but keep residents comfortable. Use manual overrides only where necessary." Evelyn nodded, approving silently. "Proceed." John's hands moved swiftly, adjusting circuits, overriding automatic systems, and communicating with teams throughout the ring. Sweat formed at his temples as he worked against time. Then, unexpectedly, a secondary problem appeared. The AI predicted cascading failure in a secondary sector, which could affect medical units. John paused, assessing the risks. "Trust human judgment over efficiency algorithms," he muttered to himself. "Prioritize life support and medical modules first. Everything else comes second." He implemented the changes. Lights flickered, then stabilized. Life support remained constant. Medical systems were unaffected. Even the children's modules, slightly reduced in energy, continued operating with minor adjustments. The crisis passed. The room exhaled collectively. Engineers smiled. Evelyn looked at John, pride evident in her gaze. "You didn't just manage a problem," she said. "You saved lives, and you did it by being human." For John, the moment was surreal. Months ago, he had been a single dad fixing a kiosk. Now he had been entrusted with decisions that could impact thousands, and he had not failed. That night back in their apartment, Lily and Max collapsed on the floor, exhausted but laughing. John and Evelyn watched them, the weight of responsibility temporarily lifted. "You did well today," Evelyn said quietly. John shook his head. "I just did what any human would do. Try to make the right choice when it matters most." "Exactly," she replied. "And that is what makes humans extraordinary. Machines calculate, but humans decide. Humans care. Humans innovate. Humans endure." Days turned into weeks. John continued working closely with Evelyn, gaining experience, refining judgment, and discovering strengths he had never known. The colony began to run smoother, not just because of technology, but because human intuition was now integrated into every critical system. Then came a test that would define everything. A sudden solar flare disrupted satellite communications and energy distribution across several rings. Automated systems began reacting, but only humans could interpret the unpredictable consequences and respond accordingly. John was at the control center, Evelyn at his side. The AI offered multiple solutions, all logically sound but potentially harmful to human comfort and safety. John analyzed the data, then made a bold choice. Reroute solar energy to essential life support systems first, stabilize the outer residential rings manually, and temporarily reduce power in commercial and non-essential areas. It was risky, but it prioritized human lives over algorithmic efficiency. Within minutes, the system stabilized. Power returned to all sectors without interruption to life support or medical modules. The colony remained safe. Evelyn exhaled, relief evident in her posture. "You did it. You saved the colony, and you did it using human judgment." John smiled, exhausted but exhilarated. "I just trusted what humans can do." Evelyn placed a hand on his shoulder. "And that is why humans matter, not because we are perfect, but because we care, we act, we endure, and we think beyond calculations." That is what you showed the colony. Later, John walked to the observation deck alone. Lily slept soundly in her bed. The ring spun silently around the earth. And he realized something profound. Humans, with all their flaws and limitations, were still capable of extraordinary things. He thought about Evelyn not as a CEO, not as a test giver, but as a partner in shaping the future. And he thought about himself, a single dad who had stepped into a role he had never imagined, and discovered that being human was enough to change the course of lives, even among the stars. The colony hummed peacefully, a testament to technology and humanity combined. And as John looked out at the glowing earth below, he knew one thing for certain: humans were the heart of the future. Their courage, compassion, and intuition could guide civilizations. And sometimes all it took was a single choice, made by someone brave enough to trust the human spirit. John smiled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. He had found purpose, not just in work but in the act of being human. And in that moment, surrounded by the quiet glow of the colony, he understood the greatest truth of all. It was not machines that would shape the future. It was humans. And he, a single dad with a daughter and a willingness to act, had proven that humans could rise to any challenge. And for the first time in months, John felt completely, undeniably hopeful.